on the Newman Jets Audio Network. This is the Jetcast, the official podcast of Newman University Athletics, featuring exclusive interviews with coaches, players, administrators, and more. The Jetcast podcast is brought to you by Ascension Via Christi, Donlinger Construction, Mel Hambledon Ford, Eck Agency, Dr. Brennan Lucas and Advanced Orthopedic Associates, Keystone Solid Surfaces, Big Corner Creative, Pepsi, and by iCryo Recovery and Wellness. Here's the voice of the Newman Jets, Blake Cripps.
Newman Jets Golf has braved the frigid temperatures this spring, and they're now headed into their final weeks of the season. And conference championships are coming up in just the next couple of weeks. Director of Golf Taryn Torgerson joins us for episode 93 of the Jetcast as we get Newman Jets Golf set for the postseason. Coach, great to have you back aboard. Thanks so much for the time.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Well, how do you're you're a Buhler girl from Buhler, Kansas, so, I'm sure there have been many a spring where the temperatures have been a little bit chilly, so I'm sure that you have to be at least somewhat used to it, playing at Wichita State and coaching here. How have your players been dealing with this cold weather?
Yeah, fortunately, they're pretty used to it, too. We get some kids from warmer weather places that are not very used to it. Our Texas kids get really cold really easily, and then our Canadians out there in short sleeves, like, this is nothing,
Sure.
So we have both ends of the spectrum, which is kind of funny, but yeah, I'm used to it. I played, my spring college golf in this kind of weather as well, and they've adjusted and adapted to it pretty well. And like you said, we practice here in Wichita every day, and the weather is not cooperative here either. So we have a lot of practice in the cold, wind, and rain, and so we're usually prepared for whatever tournament competition throws at us.
Well, yeah, if my memory serves me correctly, I'm thinking Felisa would be one of the ones that probably does not like, even though she's golfed well in all temperatures, but probably not one of the ones that likes this weather. I'm thinking maybe Bethany, over there, British Open conditions, it get pretty chilly playing on the links.
Yeah, they're definitely opposite spectrums for them, for sure. But yeah, Felisa coming from Texas, and she doesn't know 30 and 40 degrees very well,
No.
So she had to adapt to that a little bit. But she's obviously handled it super well, and Beth is usually the first one to shed layers out on the
Sure.
course when the sun peaks. Layers start coming off. So it's kind of funny to see how they all handle it differently.
Felisa getting a little bit more, and the rest of the Jets, a little bit more acquainted with the 30s and 40s in terms of temperature this year. The men most recently at the NSIC conference preview in their last action. How do you think your guys did?
Yeah, I was really pleased with them. We started off the day yesterday really, really solid, and we just had some unfortunate things happen kind of toward the end of the round. That some good learning experiences for some of our younger guys. One of them actually had to take a penalty for having too many clubs in his bag, so that's just
Wow.
a good learning experience. That the score was higher than it should have been, but at the end of the day, they learned from it, and we had a couple other we finished on some difficult holes, so just a few mistakes toward the end. But overall, I was really pleased. They played really well a week ago at Rose Creek as well. We really saw some improvement in them there in some really, really nasty conditions. And they carried that into this last week as well. So we're seeing improvement at the right time, which is nice. And we're just looking to keep putting one foot in front of the other and continuing to grow as a team.
So the women have actually been off for a little bit. Their last action was at the Hillcat Classic, which was actually a couple of weeks ago. So kind of a two-part question. First, kind of recap the ladies down there at Oklahoma at the Hillcat Classic, and then also what you've been doing with the girls these last couple of weeks, as they've got some very important events coming up, as well as their postseason is also just weeks away.
For sure, yeah. I would say, the girls, they've been working at it. They would say the same thing. The first couple tournaments were not what we wanted them to be. They're a lot better than the scores that they posted. We had a couple decent scores at our first event, but as far as the Hillcat Classic, we definitely didn't play to our potential. And we left a lot of shots out there, and we've had some conversations about that on how we can kind of battle those, mental blocks a little bit better and continue to get better at the physical stuff as well. So that's kind of what we've been focusing on. That break came at a really good time. especially we had one battling a back injury, and of course when I was sick, of course I gave that to a couple of the girls by accident, being around them so much. So having that time for them to rest and recover and kind of get their feet back underneath them before we head into the latter part and most important part of the season, I think will be big. But we've just been focusing on a lot of short game stuff, and then just, kind of our longer clubs as well, keeping the ball in play so we can attack greens from there, and kind of eliminating. We've just had way too many big numbers, which you make doubles and triples, your score goes up in a hurry. So we need to be able to eliminate those so we can continue to battle back and not have such a steep hill to climb.
Coming up later on this episode of the Jetcast, we're talking with Justin Looper off of the men's golf team. He's coming up next. And then softball is actually back in action this weekend. We'll talk with a sophomore outfielder, Madi Canez. That's also later on this episode of the show. The men's team coming into the year, you had mentioned, as we had talked previously, that this was going to be a little bit of a rebuilding year, that you wanted to see the team take some positive steps. It sounds like the guys have been doing that. From the season perspective, what has allowed the guys as a group, and who are a couple of the guys that have started to maybe push your program in the positive direction that you wanted to see this year?
Yeah, in the fall we were pretty young and inexperienced, besides Justin, who's a fifth-year senior. So it was just kind of some growing pains, if you will, in the fall, of just everybody getting used to college golf, and what that's like, the demands of it, the intensity of it. I know by the time we got to the end of the fall, they were just tired because they're not used to playing that many tournaments in a short amount of time, 36 holes in a day for most of them. All of that's an adjustment from high school golf to college golf. But we've really had some guys step up. My assistant, Matthias, and I have had some pretty, intense conversations with them about setting the standard higher and setting expectations that not only we hold them to, but they hold themselves to. So we've set a lot of just little things like show up on time. Come with a positive attitude. Like, you're not doing anything for yourself or the team if you don't show up with a mindset of getting better. So we need to take, those 2 or 3 hours or whatever it is that we're using for golf and leave everything else out of the way and spend those few hours getting better at what we need to get better on. And then all the other life, school stuff is going to be there when we're done. So just some things like that. We've had our freshmen have really stepped up, which has been really, really cool. Justin had a pretty good fall, but just didn't have a lot of supporting cast. But Braxton Muldoon, Leighton Love has really stepped up big this semester as well. And then Noah Aarons has also starting to show a lot of improvement in the last couple events. He's had a couple injuries to where he wasn't able to play as much. But his last 2 events, we've seen some really good things. And they're all 3 freshmen, which is exciting for the future of the program as well. And then Justin's just been solid in our leader all year long, and he's been just really good. We kind of know what we're going to get from him. He's going to fight back if he has a bad hole, and we've kind of seen that from him as well. And a perfect example of that is yesterday I was with him on a hole, and he made a bogey, and he was kind of upset with himself. And then 2 holes later, I look at Golf Stat, and he holes out for eagle on number 1, like 2 holes later. So he's never out of it. A round is never done with him. So that was pretty cool for him. And so he's definitely been good, and he's getting some of our freshmen to step up to where we're actually putting some respectable team scores on the board.
Well, and you mentioned that. That segues actually to my next question, which is about the ladies, because this was a group that you maybe had some expectations for this year, that they could be pretty good. But, you mentioned that the tournament's not over until it's at the end of the season. This season's not over until you're at the end of the season. And I know that you feel like the players that you have the capability, if they put it together, to be able to compete and get into the postseason. So how do the ladies need to go about doing that, coming together as a team? Hopefully, as you've mentioned, using these couple of off weeks to work on their game, fine-tune, or just get themselves in the right mental state to maybe make a push. And I know that you've got several players on the ladies team that, if they put everything all together, can be just as good as just about anybody in the conference.
Yeah, absolutely. All of these ladies have an exceptional amount of talent and feel and finesse and all the things that you need to be a good golfer. And I think the hardest thing about being a coach is you can't teach belief or self-confidence and trust and things like that. And that's what a lot of it comes down to. And we've had conversations about that. We do things in practice, and, man, they look good. I mean, they look really good. There's not a lot of flaws. There's not a lot of fundamentals that aren't on point. And then we get into tournaments and, they don't use those things like they should, or we're just not doing it the way that we were in practice. And, yes, it's a different level of pressure. It's a different atmosphere and environment in a tournament setting. But it's just getting them to trust what they're doing in practice to take it on to the course in a tournament. That's the biggest thing. And it is hard because I can tell somebody how much I believe in them with all my heart and soul, but if they don't believe in themselves, then it doesn't matter.
Well, you were a very good tournament player. You played very well in several Missouri Valley Conference championships for Wichita State. So that was something that were you on the tail end of the American when they first switched conferences?
Yeah, I won the American my senior year.
Yeah,
year.
Not bad. Just winning the MVC and the American, not too bad. But you were a player that was able to find that confidence. How did you do it, and how do you try to impart to your players, this is how it's done, even though it's a lot easier said than actually getting it done?
Yeah, it definitely is. But, the thing that I preach the most is, if you're standing on hole 10 and you're still talking about what happened on hole 8, then we're not where our feet are. And that's the biggest thing in golf. And the other thing is you can't look ahead. Like, okay, well, I just made a double, but, holes 12 and 16 are birdieable. It's like, no, you can't script what you're going to do and the shots that you're going to hit that are still to come. So you have to stay where your feet are, hit every shot the way that you can. I find myself doing that with girls all the time. They'll talk about, well, what should I do what should I hit off of this hole? And I was like, let's worry about this shot that's right in front of us and not get too far ahead, and also not dwell on the past, which, like you said, it's easier said than done with mental game. But that's what I really was striving to do as my career went on is, one, my coach wouldn't have put me out there if he didn't believe in me and didn't trust me to make it, to go put scores on the board and make an impact on the team. And I had to trust that within, that all the hours that I put in, whether that's, the 5 a.m. alarms to go do team workouts, and all the late nights on the golf course, and all of that, times in the indoor facility when we're hitting balls into the snow-covered rain, like all of that stuff, just trusting all that it's going to pay off and that I am prepared. And that's the hardest thing as a coach, is to not see your players believe in themselves as much as you believe in them.
Well, next week your guys are not necessarily at home, but it's not going to be a very long trip up there as you head to the Prairie Dunes Collegiate, and obviously in Hutchinson, Prairie Dunes Country Club next week. What's the status of that event? What kind of teams are going to be there, and how nice is it to have an event that's, as drivable of an event as you can have without being in Sedgwick County?
Yeah, for sure. Prairie Dunes is a top-tier course. It's been ranked, one of the top courses in the country, in the nation.
Haven't they had some seniors and women's majors there as
well?
Yeah,
they've had Big 12 championships.
Yes.
They had when I was in high school, I think they had the national championships there.
Wow.
So it's a big-time place. My brother and I, because we went to high school about 10 minutes from there, that was like our after-school job, is we were kind of cart boys or girls, or if you will, out there. So we've played that course a bunch. I love the area. It's a really cool golf course. It's just a really cool opportunity that they're going to get to play it, because they wouldn't otherwise, because it's a very private, prestigious place. So Sterling College is hosting it, so we'll get to see a little bit more of a variety of teams of, different levels, which is nice. We're always competing against the Central Missouris, the Rogers States, the Northeastern State, all those teams in our conference, and they're really, really good. And not that the teams that are going to be at this tournament aren't, but it's just teams we haven't seen before. It's fresh people, fresh golf course. So I'm excited for them to go out there and, not be competing against the same people, hopefully see a little success and kind of have some confidence going into that week off before conference, so we can go into conference, feeling good about our games and confident in each other and in themselves.
Well, and not only that, but the women are also sticking around, as you'll be hosting once again the Newman Invite. That's coming up on Monday and Tuesday. That will be at Sand Creek Station. You guys were able to host the Newman Invite and the MIAA Women's Championship last year, and so back-to-back years for the ladies trying to defend their home turf, and they did a pretty good job of that last year. How do they do that again this year?
Yeah, we're actually loading up the van today, and we're going to go over there and practice, hit some balls, chip and putt on those greens just to kind of get ourselves acclimated to that. And then we're going to play a practice round Friday, and then we'll go back Sunday and practice again. So we'll get on the turf out there and play on those greens, 3 times before we tee it up on Monday, which will be nice. They're really good about working with us and allowing us to come out there and kind of get acclimated to it. But it's a great golf course. I absolutely love it. It's a great tournament course. You can set it up to be pretty challenging, but you can also make it really scoreable, risk reward. And we meet in the middle on that. We want to have some challenges to where the true champions shine, but
Sure.
also have some holes where you can kind of go after them a little bit as well. So the weather's looking great, which I haven't been able to say that in years past going there. So I think I might have to dig my shorts out of the closet because
Sure.
they haven't been out for quite a while. But the weather's looking good. Knock on something, knock on wood or whatever. But I'm looking forward to it. I know we have some of their fellow student athletes and some other coaches that aren't in season that are going to come out and help us and volunteer and also just support my girls, which that's why I want to host, is to give them an opportunity to play in front of some Newman faithful so they can kind of show their talents because they don't get the opportunity to do that otherwise. So we're really excited.
So once again, that is going to be Monday and Tuesday at Sand Creek Station. Last thing for you, you mentioned some practice rounds on Friday for the guys and the girls. The wind gusts are scheduled to be out of the west at 50-plus miles per hour. Not necessarily going to be the same kind of conditions, although it can be breezy just about any time. So what are your thoughts on the winds that you might see during these practice rounds later this week?
Yeah, I don't even know what to say at this point. Last week at Rose Creek with the guys, it was a constant, I believe it was 28 mile an hour with gusts up to 40 to 45. And
yeah.
I tell you what, I told them afterwards, I was like, why do you guys play better when the weather's awful than when the weather's perfect? But they handled it super well. They battled it. And that's what I told them at the beginning of the day is, hey, the conditions are going to be tough. Everybody's playing in it, but let's be the team that handles it the best and battles it the best. And they did that. They rose to the challenge and did that. And, that's going to have to be the message for both the guys and girls going into next week is, a practice round is just to see the course and to see kind of how the ball's flying, what clubs to hit off tees and things like that. And it could be totally different with the wind out of different direction when the tournament actually rolls around. So we take good notes and we talk about those things that they'll just definitely have to be disciplined on making sure that they're making the right decisions because it might not be the same from day to day, and that's just Kansas, and that's where we live, and we'll have to we'll have to deal with it. But we've been working a lot on wind shots, whether that's around the greens with flighted wedges or teeing the ball low off the tee so we can get a little more distance. So they know how to hit the shots. It's just going out and executing.
So both of the Jets teams are going to be very, very close here to Wichita. The men up at Prairie Dunes on Monday and Tuesday. The women hosting their Newman Invite at Sand Creek Station on Monday and Tuesday. So get to one or maybe get to both. It's not that far of a drive between the two as the Jets are right here in South Central Kansas for golf next week. Coach Torgerson, which tournament will you be at? And, I know that you'll be going back and forth and keeping track of everything, but best of luck to you and all the Jets next week. It'll be a very busy week for you next week.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I will be at Sand Creek doing the hosting duties and coaching the ladies, but my assistant, the guys will be in good hands. He'll be out at Prairie Dunes with them, and obviously, we have each other on speed dial, so we'll be talking and texting back and forth, keeping up with each other. But it's an exciting week ahead, so we'd love to see any Jet fans out there to support our players for sure.
And one of the players that you will see out there if you're headed to Hutchinson is Justin Looper, senior out of Mays South from right here in Wichita, Kansas, and he joins us next on the Jetcast.
Where can you land the best Jet swag? The official online store of Newman University Athletics and NewJetSkier.com. store features the greatest variety of Jets logo gear anywhere. The latest clothing styles and hats to Newman branded lawn chairs and office supplies and more. NUJetsGear.com is your place to purchase sports specific, alumni, parents, and hard to find Newman merchandise. Shop right now on your computer or phone. NUJetsGear.com or click the Shop Now button at NewmanJets.com.
Back here on the Jetcast talking golf as the men are up at Prairie Dunes this week. Monday and Tuesday, of course, coming up next week as that's when the golf schedule lines out. From Wichita, we've got a senior for the Newman Jets, Justin Looper, a former Mays South Maverick. Justin, thanks so much for being on the show. Appreciate your
problem.
time.
Thanks for having me.
Well, last time out, I know that Coach, who we just talked to, Coach Torgerson, pretty happy with how you golfed at the NSIC preview in Blue Springs, Missouri. How do you feel the event went for you?
I think collectively as a team, it went pretty solidly. There's still some things we can build upon and stuff, but overall, I think we're moving in the right direction.
Individually, what do you feel like were some of the things that you did well in your game that allowed you to execute your game plan on that course?
Personally, I hit irons and wedges especially very strongly, put me in a lot of good positions.
What do you feel is one of the things that you've been working the most on in your game this year?
That kind of depends, as the months and because there's so many different facets of golf. It feels like you always have certain things, but not often do you have everything at once.
Sure.
So, but for the most part, I like to spend a lot of time on short game, chipping and putting.
What do you think is the strength? If there's something that you go out on the course and you're playing one round for $1 million, what's the aspect of your game that you think that you're going to have the most confidence in?
I think if I had to pick one, probably wedges.
Wedges.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think makes you a good wedge player?
I think that would boil down to just simply confidence, probably.
So how do you take that confidence from your wedge game and then apply it? I don't know if it's, you want to putt better or if you want to drive better. How do you take that and then apply it to the other elements of your game to become the well-rounded player that you want to be?
That's actually something I'm trying to figure out.
Sure.
But, yeah, just I'm a very feel-based player, so
okay.
always just trying to find a certain feeling that, makes me feel like I can hit a certain shot at a certain time and things like that.
What's it been like to be coached by Coach Torgerson, a player that definitely had a lot of feel, definitely had a lot of confidence in her collegiate career? What's that been like, and how has she helped kind of develop your game?
It's been awesome. She's just really good with all of us. And then we have our assistant, Matthias. He's with us all the time, and I think they both work really well together and know all our personalities, and it's been a fun time.
So you are a local Wichita kid, went to Mays South. So you're not that far away from Prairie Dunes. Have you ever been able to play Prairie Dunes before? I know it's a pretty exclusive, kind of hard to get in there, but have you ever been on the course before? I
actually have not. I had the chance. I almost went there once a couple months ago, but I've never actually been out there.
So how excited are you? I mean, this is a place that's hosted Big 12 championships. I think a couple of majors for women's golf. Also, I think that they've had I think maybe some senior U.S. Opens have been up there, too, at Prairie Dunes. How excited are you to play a course that has such a great history and such an outstanding reputation?
Yeah, super excited. It's always a course, just, like you said, living around here. I've always known about it and heard about it with, all the different events they've had and how highly ranked, nationally of a course it is. So I've always been excited.
Well, I know that Coach said you got some practice lined up for later in the week, and I don't know what the weather forecast is supposed to be for Monday and Tuesday, but on Friday this week, they're calling for winds out of the west at gusting to 50 miles per hour. So how do you adjust your practice plan when you have winds like that, just because you know that if you go and try to play the course, I don't know if you guys will get any practice rounds up at Prairie Dunes or not, but even if you're playing on one of the city golf courses just for practice, it's probably not going to be gusting 50 out of the west when you play. So how do you kind of adjust when you're out there in those conditions, trying to practice, knowing that the wind may be totally different, maybe no wind? There's no way to know what it's going to be like on Monday and Tuesday.
Yeah, a lot of that is just in practice. Obviously you can't completely simulate it because you don't have the 50-mile-an-hour winds out there, but some of the certain types of shots you're going to have to hit, so you kind of try to practice those as much as you can. And luckily, 2 weeks ago, the tournament we played in, it was blowing probably maybe not quite 30, but 25 or something steadily. So it's nice that we've already experienced that, so we kind of know what to expect.
Well, and Coach Torgerson said that for whatever reason, and this is not the case for most golfers, she says that she feels like you guys are almost better in bad weather than you are if everything's just perfect with no wind. She thinks that you guys are better when it's rainy or snowy or windy. What do you think makes you guys a good bad weather golf team?
Yeah, I can't completely give a good answer for that, but I don't know if it makes us focus more and, you know, keep our, minds into every shot, because, when it's like that, you can't afford to take a play off, basically.
What's it been like for you being one of the senior leaders on this team? I know that Coach Torgerson has said that the freshmen have been coming along, and she attributed some of your leadership to that. And she said one of your strong points is that no matter if you make one bad shot, you are the kind of player that's never going to give up on a round. So I guess a two-part question. First of all, what do you attribute that mental toughness to? Because especially when the wind is blowing 50 miles per hour, you've got to be able to put that last shot behind you to get the next shot into the short grass or onto the green or into the cup, depending on where you are.
I would say if I had to pinpoint that on one thing, I would say probably just playing other sports all the way through my life. So you kind of learn how to handle adversity in different situations, and then just, taking that through all the years I played sports and stuff like that. And
then how have you tried to be a leader and try to impart that mindset on some of the freshmen that have been having some pretty promising starts to their Jet careers?
Yeah, I don't know. That's kind of a tough question for me because I'm not a super vocal leader.
What she
I'm
said.
more of a lead by example kind of guy. So just kind of doing what I can do to show them that this is the way that we like to do things around here, and kind of, show them the ropes that way instead of being super vocal about it.
Well, last question for you. You guys are getting set for your own postseason. The MIAA championships are coming up in just a couple of weeks. You want to have a good, run up to that event. So how important is it to have a good performance at Prairie Dunes to get set for the conference championships?
I think that, like I said earlier, I think we are trending in the right direction. And a course like Prairie Dunes is not – I've never been out there, but I've heard it's not the easiest course ever.
No,
so
it is not.
It'll be a good test for us and a good kind of preview, you could say.
Once again, the Newman men and women are both in action on Monday and Tuesday next week. The women are going to be hosting their own invitational at Sand Creek Station. The men are up at the Prairie Dunes Invite, Prairie Dunes Country Club in Hutchinson. That's Monday and Tuesday next week. So one or the other, or maybe both, get out and support the Navy and Red as they are golfing very, very close to home next week. Justin Looper, senior from Wichita from Mays South, senior on this Newman Jets team. Thanks so much, Justin. Good luck to you next week, and appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We're talking with Madi Canez off the softball team. She joins us next on the Jetcast.
I have a little birthday message for you from someone, too.
I heard you really love basketball. You're a good shooter and a good dribbler. Happy birthday, MJ, and I hope you enjoy your day.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Newman Jets softball is back in action for home games this week as they take on Central Oklahoma. And joining us is a sophomore outfielder from Queen Creek, Arizona, Madi Canez, as the Jets softball team looking to get on track in MIAA play. A 2 o'clock doubleheader on Friday, which you can watch on the MIAA Network, the MIAAnetwork.com/Newman if you can't get here. Madison is hitting .300 and leads the Jets with 8 doubles, 21 RBIs, and is slugging .440 to lead the Navy and Red. Madi Canez, also known as Madi Canez, joining us here on the show. Thanks so much for being here, Madison.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
And, of course, last name Canez, but Coach Gustafson, who we call Coach G, just didn't know how to say your name, so that's how the nickname?
Yeah, it stuck, and then it kind of stuck as a joke, so now I'm known as Madi Canez.
Well, I will say, like, Madi, not that Madi Canez isn't a perfectly lovely name, but boy, Madi Canez just kind of has a ring to it, doesn't it?
It does.
Especially for a softball player. So the last time out for you guys, a couple of losses earlier this week at East Central. Pretty close in both. Both of them could have gone either way. What were your thoughts about the losses to the Tigers on the road?
Going there, we really had the mindset of really coming back from East Central, really competing, playing. And it was a tough loss. We went into extras the first game, and we really just tried our best out there.
Well, the thing is for you guys, and it's so interesting in softball how the schedule lines up because you guys play so much non-conference here early.
Right.
Despite you guys being on a 4-game losing streak, you guys have only played 6 conference games.
Right.
So there is so much time, not that much time left on the calendar, but you have so many more games left.
Right.
So, everything you guys want to achieve is still in front of you. How do you guys keep a positive mindset to kind of set aside the record? It's not where you want it to be, but, the opportunity to do everything that you want to do is still there for you.
Right. I think every game we really try and have a fresh start. We really try to go out there and compete. We haven't had the best season so far that we thought we would have, but every game we come out, try to compete, play our best, really do what we can to try and win. And I think that in most of our games we've been really competing, and that's been like our goal this season, I'd say, in the fact that at the beginning we didn't really compete as much as we'd hoped to. But yeah.
What do you think is, in terms of that competition level? And Coach Gustafson, last time I had her on, she said, it's more of a deal. She feels like, she's trying to get you guys to play to win and try to make winning plays rather than worrying about making losing plays. Do you feel that shift starting to happen a little bit with you guys as a team? And what do you think is kind of the catalyst for that shift in mindset or approach or whatever it is?
I think we did really well over East Central because last time they run-rolled us both times, and this time we really came back. It was a 0-0 game until I want to say like the 7th inning, and then we went into extras, and it's just competing and playing for each other and not really being selfish player.
So you have kind of bounced around the outfield a little bit, getting some starts at center, getting some starts in left field. How do you approach those two positions? How differently do you have to play those two positions? And how did you get started as an outfielder in your softball career?
I honestly have never played outfield until coming here.
Really?
Really. I played infield most of my life, mostly middles, but outfield is such like a different game in the fact that it's so much slower in the outfield,
Sure.
I'd say, than the infield where it's like you got to be like on it.
So in that case, a follow-up question, the best follow-up for those of you watching, the best follow-up questions are probably just after you get an answer you don't expect. How did that process go about of Coach G saying, hey, I know you're an infielder. We want to try you in the outfield. How receptive were you to that, and how do you think that's going for you as you've begun your outfield career?
I think it's going pretty well. I'm honestly open to playing any position. I think it really gives you a better IQ of the game in total. And it's just different perspectives, like knowing where this person should be, whether you play that position versus this position.
So one thing that has been, the focus of a lot of fall sports, or I should say spring sports this year, is the fall-like conditions and maybe even the winter-like conditions. It's been cold.
Yes.
You're from Arizona.
Yes.
What's that adjustment been like, and how have you dealt with the weather we've had this year?
Layers is really important. Back home, like, it's nice and sunny. Like, our winters barely get down to, like, 50-ish. And here it's snowing. It's crazy. And the wind, totally different ball game out here.
Well, and I have to ask you about that. The games, again, are at 2 o'clock and 4 o'clock on Friday. The wind, which it's so wild because the wind has been in such weird positions, because I've been covering baseball while you guys have been away, and the wind typically blows out from the south, so that's blowing out favoring the left-handed hitters on the softball field.
Mm-hmm.
It's been blowing in, and so it's been hurting the left-handed batters and then kind of blowing across for the right-handed batters. This week on Friday, when you guys are playing, it is scheduled to be blowing out of the west at 25 to 35, gusting to 50, and you saw the eye roll. Madison is a right-handed hitter, which means that the ball is going to be not just hurting, it's going to be killing anything in the air that she pulls. First of all, pull hitter?
Yeah.
So that's not the weather forecast that you want. How do you try to change your approach at the plate to keep the ball down, maybe try to go the other way? Gusting to 50, Kansas is windy, but we don't see wind like that all the time.
Yeah. I'd say, balls on the ground, line drive, try to keep it out of the air, let it get back, try to go oppo, do the best you can with that.
Well, and the other thing, too, is, being a new outfielder, especially if you're playing in left field, how you just have to kind of trust that you can play shallower than you normally would because, it's going to take a Ruthian cut to get one out. I mean, you have to be like Addison Barnard maybe to get it out of
right.
the field with it blowing like that. So how will you have to adjust your play defensively if you're in center or left field?
Usually we put on like a little shift to the wind or we really communicate, like talk it over in the outfield, like make sure that everyone's calling ball, letting them know where the fence is, how shallow we should play.
So, yeah, there may be some balls to the outfield that may end up being caught by the shortstop. We will see. You have been one of the top hitters on the team. You've driven in a ton of runs. You lead the team in doubles. What do you think has been the key to your hitting success this year?
I think just a lot of confidence in me at the plate this year has really helped me, and really seeing the ball really well. At practice, I stand in for the pitchers, and I think that's been really helping me see the ball a lot better.
Last question for you. This Central Oklahoma team that's coming in is pretty darn talented. They've been playing very, very well. I think they've actually been ranked at several points during this season, too. So you know that this is going to be a team that is ready to play, very well coached. But you guys have some history in knocking off top 10 teams and beating Rogers State last year. So how do you take that experience? And then obviously, just because you won that game over Rogers State doesn't have anything to do with UCO, but you guys should have some confidence that you can, if you play your best softball, beat anybody at any time. You proved it last year. What's the correct approach to take to try to stay close with the Broncos and give yourself a chance at the end?
I think just really coming with the mindset, competing, playing for each other, not really getting down on ourselves when we're behind, because we can always come back. So I think just really coming in, competing, playing for each other.
Madi Canez and the softball Jets will be in action once again. It's a 2 o'clock doubleheader. It'll be about 25 minutes in between. They're scheduled for 2 and 4, but 2 o'clock doubleheader against the Broncos, and you can watch that game once again on the MIAA network. Madi Canez, best of luck to you and the Jets this week.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
That is our show for this week. We'll be back next week. We're going to wrap up the bowling season. The Jets are hopeful at some time today that they will get a call that they will make the NCAA tournament. We are waiting on that, so we will see next week how that goes out. We'll also talk some more baseball next week on the show, so we will plan to see you then. Also, I believe Cheer and Dance is coming up. That might be next week, baseball the week after that. So Cheer and Dance with Coach Muncie is coming up on a future edition of the Jetcast as well. So until then, Blake Cripps in Wichita saying, go Jets.